Hi Rohit, I am Kishore. I am working as senior analyst. Thanks for joining this technical round. How are you today?
Hello, sir. I am good. Thank you.
Great. So you have cleared the first round and now we will dive deeper into your Power BI skills. Let's start with your projects. Can you walk me through a Power BI project you've worked on? What was the objective and what role did you play?
Sure. I recently built a sales performance dashboard. The goal was to track revenue, top selling products, and regional performance. I connected to SQL Server, transformed data in Power Query, and created interactive visuals like maps and trend charts.
Nice. What kind of data sources did you use?
Primarily SQL tables, but I also pulled in some Excel files for reference data like product categories.
Did you work with any other data sources like APIs or cloud databases?
Yes, in another project, I used Power BI's API connector to pull real time sales data from a REST API. I also connected to Azure SQL database for a cloud based dataset.
How did you handle data cleaning in Power Query? Any challenges that you faced?
I dealt with missing values by replacing them with defaults and merged tables for product hierarchies. One challenge was date formats. Some were in month, date, year, while others in date, month, year. So I standardized them.
What Power Query transformations do you use most often?
I frequently use merge queries like SQL joins, pivot, or unpivot, and group by for aggregations. For complex transformations, I write custom M code, like filtering rows based on conditions.
Okay, let's dive deeper into DAX optimization. Imagine you're building a sales report with 10 million rows. Would you use a calculated column or a measure to compute profit margin? Also, explain the performance implications of each approach.
For profit margin, I would always use a measure because it's memory efficient. Calculated columns increase file size by storing values for all 10 million rows, while measures compute dynamically. Another reason is its filter context. Measures respond to slicers or user selections, and it has aggregation flexibility. Measures work at any granularity, for example, by year or category. I would use calculated columns if the logic is used in row level security or RLS, or another scenario would be for static categorizations.
Can you write a DAX measure to calculate YTD or year to date sales in the chat window?
Sure.
What if
I think this should be the correct DAX for YTD sales.
what if you needed to filter this for a specific product category?
I would add calculate function. This DAX will work for electronic product categories.
How would you handle a time intelligence scenario, like comparing sales year over year?
I would use same period last year. If I have write a DAX, I will write. That's the DAX for same period last year.
Nice. Let's discuss visuals. What is your approach to choosing the right visual for a scenario?
It depends on the data story. For trends, I use line charts. For comparisons, bar column charts. For distributions, I use histograms. And for hierarchies, tree maps suit the best.
How would you design a dashboard to show sales by region and product category?
I would use a map visual for regional sales, a stacked bar chart for category breakdown, and a slicer for time filtering. I would also add a card visual for KP is like total revenue.
What are drill through visuals and how have you used them?
Drill through lets users click a data point to navigate to a detailed page. In my project, I set up a drill through from a regional sales map to a page showing city level details.
How do you handle large data sets in visuals without slowing performance?
I use aggregations, it limits data with filters, and avoid high cardinality columns in visuals. For example, I would show sales by month instead of by day if the dataset is huge.
Okay. How would you let users filter a report by region and date range?
I would add slicers for region as drop down and a date slicer as range picker. For better performance, I can use hierarchies like country to state to city.
All right. What's the difference between filtering at the visual level versus page level?
Visual level filters apply only to that chart, while page level filters affect all visuals on the page.
How would you implement a dynamic top-end filter basis on user selection?
I can create a parameter, for example, top end products, and use it in a measure.
Okay. How do you publish and share a Power BI report?
I would publish to Power BI service, create a workspace, and share it with stakeholders. For security, I would use row level security to restrict data access, like letting managers see only their region sales.
How would you implement RLS for a sales territory table?
I would create roles in Power BI desktop, example East region, with a DAX filter, then assign users to these roles in the service.
What are Power BI apps and how do they differ from workspaces?
Workspaces are for development, while apps are curated report packages for end users. Apps ensure stakeholders see only finalized content.
Okay. Imagine a sales table with duplicates. How would you handle it in DAX or SQL?
In SQL, I would use distinct or group by, and in Power Query, I would remove duplicates. In DAX, I would use summarize to aggregate distinct values.
What if you needed to compare sales month over month? Also, write DAX for the same.
I would create a measure using previous month,
How would
and the DAX for previous month would be. Here is the DAX for previous month.
how would you optimize a slow performing DAX measure?
I would check for filter context issues, avoid all function in large tables, and use variables to avoid redundant calculations.
Great job. One last question. How do you approach a new Power BI project?
First, I would understand the business requirements, then identify data sources, clean and transform data, then design the data model, and finally build visuals with user interactivity in mind.
Perfect. We will end this interview session here. Do you have any questions for me?
No, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you then. We will get back to you soon.